Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. So, Kim, that was my argument that maybe in some situations, case by case, these kind of special districts make sense, or at least more sense than trying to run a whole operation like Disney World through the zoning code of Orange County, Florida, and the tax code of Orange County, Florida. I wonder if I convinced you or moved you at all in that direction.
It was a nice try, Kyle. I really do appreciate some of those arguments about complexity and ease. But here's my problem overall is that Disney is getting privileges that no other business gets in Orange County. I mean, why does everybody else in Orange County have to go in front of the Orange County Zoning Board and struggle and fight with them when they want to expand or they want to do something with their business? I mean, I guess my first inclination would always be if you're concerned about the difficulty of government getting in the way of Disney doing what it needs to do, maybe you need to rethink the size and the attitude of government and your regulations and your zoning, but we ought to have some sort of more level playing field. Now, I think the question partly comes down to how each of these districts are put together and then what kind of perks are being granted. Okay. I mean, if there really is an argument for some level of efficiency, but that in every other way, these entities are somewhat on the same playing field as other businesses, maybe there's an argument for that. And I think that that is certainly the case. I know that these are also used across the country for utilities, for instance, which is a little bit more of an interesting situation because sometimes, those are organizations that are kind of working to provide basic infrastructure and have their own kind of separate relationship with the state that businesses like Disney do not have. But in general, it's just fascinating because this entire Disney DeSantis fight has suddenly thrown up these questions of these special improvement districts. And as you know, Kyle, they're all over the country. And I think it might be a curious thing for especially sort of free marketers to look at a little bit more closely in terms of how this is actually playing out. Are they good in any way for a state or are they problematic in their own right?
What about the politics here? As a matter of realism, I understand why the Florida legislature and Governor DeSantis were irked when Disney was accusing them of breaching basic human rights. And I understand why Governor DeSantis wanted to throw a brushback pitch to Disney. It's Little League season, so I've got baseball on my mind. But Alicia, I wonder why he didn't stop there. They passed this bill to eliminate the Reedy Creek district. Then they decided they would take it over. And I don't know why Governor DeSantis didn't stop there and say, we've made our point. This corporation out of California is not going to run the state of Florida. We're going to put more oversight on what Disney is doing. And now instead, he's gotten himself into a position where he's in federal court. And Alicia, if there is some strength to these Disney arguments that they're making, whether it's the contract point or whether it's First Amendment retaliation or due process, Governor DeSantis could be in a position where he's in the middle of running for president in 2024, and he loses this lawsuit in a very public way. And the end to this public feud with Disney is a victory for Disney.
So it kind of puzzles me too, but I think it's partly because of how the media has portrayed this fight and they've completely galvanized around Disney. And in this case, they embarrassed DeSantis. I think, let me quote from the lawsuit. There was news stories that basically a public narrative about these contracts quickly formed around the idea that Governor Santos was, quote unquote, caught off guard and had, quote unquote, had the rug pulled under him. And so I think he was very defensive. And I think that's why he dug in. It's actually, in some ways, it feels like it's almost like a Trumpian instinct. And then he has gone on offense. And I think he's hoping maybe that this actually helps him politically rally the Republican base at a time that he's, at least the polls show, some of his support is peeling off and going back to Trump. So maybe he's trying to channel Trump's, pugilistic instincts in that way. Though I think you're right. If there's an adverse ruling in the lower courts while he's running for president, I'm not sure how that helps him. I think Trump will probably just pile on him like he's done before. Perhaps DeSantis can blame the judge in this case and say, oh, it was just a liberal judge and errant ruling. But I don't think it redounds to his benefit. And I also don't think it redounds to Disney's benefit for this distraction. The company has a lot of business problems right now. I mean, mainly at its Disney Plus streaming division. It had showed really strong growth initially when it debuted its streaming platform, but it's really slowed and it's actually lost customers or subscribers for the first time in the first quarter. And this is really putting a dent in Bob Iger's plan. And they're actually laying off or cutting about 7,000 jobs. And so having a fight with a Republican governor who's actually pretty popular, I don't think that that's really redounds to their benefit either.
I do think it's going to be a clear line of attack for other 2024 candidates. Mike Pence, Chris Christie are already talking about it, though Florida's broader economic success probably offers some insulation for DeSantis. If he's on the debate stage, he can say, look at all the people coming to Florida, look at our low taxes, look at our rankings on business freedom analyses. You can't tell me that the state of Florida is not in favor of jobs and business. So he does have some defense there. To the point that Alicia made about Disney's interest here, I understand why they feel the need to file this lawsuit. They have contracts and land use agreements and plans to continue their development in Disney World long term, and they worry that those are at risk. On the other hand, Kim, there are a lot of parents who were not really enamored with Disney's behavior in this fight over this quote unquote don't say gay bill either. And now Disney is basically doubling down and ensuring that this is going to be in the news for months and months and months to come. And so I don't think that this is a great situation for Disney to be in either. Ideally, I guess, as Kevin McCarthy said at the top of the show in that clip we played, you would have Disney and DeSantis come to some sort of agreement. But Kim, what do you suppose the odds of that are now that we are in a situation where we're litigating this in federal court? I guess to my eye, they don't look very good.
No, I don't think that's going to happen. And I agree with you. It would be on both sides to figure out a way to make this go away. I don't know exactly what that looks like because DeSantis, in particular, has invested a lot of political capital in this issue at the moment. Obviously, as we just discussed, the entire reason he said there was going to be a second round of fireworks was because he was somewhat embarrassed by the news that these contracts had been constructed and the state seemed to not have noticed what was going on. Disney, however, I agree completely. Like, this company has so many more issues that they ought to be dealing with than these. Disney Plus is on a slide. They're laying off 7,000 people who work there. And a lot of this does have to do with their decision to, as it were, go woke. I mean, it isn't just their decision to interject themselves into this Florida fight, but this is a park that alienated parents a while ago when it decided that it wasn't even going to use its customary introductions when people show up at shows of boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. They decided to get rid of pronouns. It's kind of a problematic situation for a lot of parents who would rather that Disney just focus back on making some good content. I don't see it happening, but it would be the best situation for all. This is going to go ahead, and there's probably going to be some more twists and turns as we go along. And I think the better thing for DeSantis is to deal with the litigation if he has to. But once he gets out on the campaign trail, to focus on the bigger issues. People already understand that he's willing to stand up to woke companies, but that message is out there. I'm not quite sure how much it benefits him to keep hitting on it.
Thank you, Kim and Alicia. Thank you all for listening. You can email us at pwpodcast@wsj.com. If you like the show, please hit that subscribe button, and we'll be back next week with another edition of Potomac Watch.